Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Lean HE Encore Americas. I'm Krista Schulte. I lead the Organizational Excellence team at the University of Michigan. I also serve as chair of Lean in Higher Ed for the Americas. I want to let you know that Organizational Excellence is privileged to host this event on behalf of Lean in Higher Ed. I also want to thank the Organizational Excellence team for handling the logistics. And I want to extend a special thank you to the Shared Services Center's video conferencing team for handling all of the supporting technology to make this happen. If you're not familiar with Lean in Higher Ed, let me tell you that they host an annual global conference. It moves through 3 different regions: the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. It can be difficult for people to attend, especially when the conference is in another region. This year marks the introduction of Encore events. The intent of this event is to share some of the presentations from the conference with a wider community. Encore Europe has hosted 2 Encore events this spring, and we're pleased to bring this event to the Americas. So thank you for being here. Please, I have a couple of requests technology-wise. Please don't add any AI note takers to respect the privacy of those who are attending. Presentations are being recorded, and with permission, they will be shared on the Lean HE YouTube channel after the event. We'll be moving quickly through our program today, hence our prompts start right at 1. We'd like to bring you 3 presentations, plus a preview of the next Lean HE conference, which is coming soon. It'll be held in Cambridge, England, in October.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry to interrupt the Eagles. I initially thought it was Janet Jackson, but was corrected by my colleagues. My name is Carl, and I am a consultant with Organizational Excellence at the University of Michigan, and I will be serving as moderator for our 3rd and final presentation. This 3rd presentation is titled Low Touch Touch Time, Collecting Process Time Data on an Enterprise Scale, and it's being presented by Brad Sollenberger from the University of California at San Diego. A little bit about this session. Nothing is more valuable than going to Gemba to observe a process. Operational Strategic Initiatives at UC San Diego found itself in a position where Gemba-level insight needed to be captured quickly and in a scalable way to improve its processes in an enterprise cloud-based system. Brad, OSI's Practice Director of Continuous Improvement, will present on the trends of automated process mining and how to efficiently capture process time data without losing what makes it real. A little bit about Brad. Brad is a healthcare and higher education administration professional with over 15 years of experience in health system and higher education operational improvement, strategic planning, program design, and project management. He is currently the Practice Director of Continuous Improvement, specializing in Lean Six Sigma process improvement and instruction. Brad also consults in strategic planning, organizational assessment and design, advising and change management in his role at OSI. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Brad, and feel free to drop your questions throughout the presentation in the question and answer dialog box. Brad, take it away.
Thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate that introduction. You know, sometimes my role feels crazy, but I feel like that accurately captured it. It's a pleasure to speak with everyone, and before beginning, I wanted to share my sincere gratitude to Kristen, Kim, Carl, and Lean in Higher Ed. I'd like to thank the speakers before, Janice and Julie at University of North Alabama, Tabitha and Candace at UT Arlington. Those were wonderful presentations, and it's exciting for me to be able to add to the body of knowledge here today. What I wanted to share today, and to sort of piggyback on Candace's comment that, you know, it's really about the story. We're going to get into some detail here as far as good measurement principles, analysis principles within the lean paradigm. But ultimately, this is a story about respect. The foundation of lean is respect for the worker. And there is a lot of disrespect out there. And it's not because of anyone's necessarily malformed intent. But if you'll allow me to wax esoterically for a moment, what do we know? We know that everything is a process. And in this universe, the governing principles are done by processes of a physical nature, of a chemical nature, of biological nature. But these are all processes. And the governing law of physics is entropy. Things will degrade over time, and that includes the processes that we manage on a regular basis. This is where disrespect is generated, not from other people. And we can share our war stories, and that can feel cathartic. But how are we going to regrade? How are we going to improve, prehab, and rehab these processes for the respect of the workers that do them every day? That's ultimately the story. So to level set, when I say touch time, and I'll say it a lot during this process, we have our lead time for a process from when a request is made for a product or a process to begin to when it ends. And contained within that lead time are several different boxes of cycle time. And this is our predominant view of processes, and we gather it through our systems through timestamps. And when we think about the timestamp level of data, what that is showing us is the cycle time. But contained within each cycle time is wait time, machine time, if it's a part of that cycle, as well as touch time. The touch time is when the process operator is reading important information, is making a judgment, is referring to SOPs, is advancing the process. Their fingers are on the keyboard. They are interfacing with a student or a faculty member. Those are all examples of touch time. And timestamps don't capture that very easily. So that requires a level of investigation, of getting close to the process. And how do we do that traditionally in a lean paradigm? One thing that I've seen regularly and have performed by myself is through time observation forms. Has anyone ever used something like this? You can use it in a template such as what's displayed, or you can be gathering notes, but you're watching the process take place in the gemba, which is Japanese for the real place. You're seeing the work unfold, you're measuring it, and you're observing it. And the biggest challenges to this is being able to capture it robustly across several different operators so that it is actually representative of the process itself. And getting to that scale and getting to that level of specificity where the data now matches the population of process turnover, that's difficult. On top of that, it's very awkward to stand behind somebody with a stopwatch or them knowing that you're observing them. There's no way around it, right? Being respectful, sharing what's happening, sharing that it's not the process operator that's being judged. We're looking at the process itself and the barriers that they see or the waiting times that they inherently feel. That's the important thing. Now, for this time-tested method, when we're talking about an enterprise scale transition within one of our cloud-based systems, that is very time-consuming. And there was a previous question about somebody being an office of one. That simply cannot be done. And that was the issue that I faced. So the issue that was being faced was we were looking at our financial information systems and moving to a cloud-based system, specifically Oracle. And we ran this implementation in summer of 2020. And at the time, we were asked, when I was in my role at Operational Strategic Initiatives, we were asked to use Lean as sort of a panacea, that there were a lot of broken processes, a lot of discomfort with the change and the new processes that were implemented. And the respectful answer we had to give back, and it takes a lot of courage to say this, but to the highest levels of sponsorship and leadership at the university, we had to say we need to wait until the stabilization phase is complete. When you make a large transition like this, you simply cannot improve a process while it is being stabilized. You can do a lot of effort beforehand, as shared in the previous presentation, with process landscaping, understanding it, and sort of prehabbing the processes before they make that transition. But ultimately, there is a time where Lean has to step back and allow the stabilization to unfold until we can get to an accurate current state. So that was the ask. Although the implementation was in 2020, this work began a lot later. The largest pain point was in our research administration enterprise. We have a massive portfolio. We are a top 10 research institution in the world, and there was a lot on the line. We have $1.64 billion in research funding. We have 400 plus research administrators who I see as the frontline staff administering the processes that make those research grants successful. If we are not successful in that, we risk state, federal, and organizational funding on a massive scale if we can't get that right. The burning platform could not be more intense. To add to that complexity, the portfolio of research is extremely varied. We have campus research with basic science going over several different departments and divisions. We have health sciences, which have completely different sponsoring agencies with different sponsor requirements. And also, we have a one-of-a-kind Scripps Institute of Oceanography. So there is a ton of complexity within this and variance within what sounds like common processes, but ultimately has permutations that greatly make the picture more complex. So there is not one problem, there are multiple problems. What we see is overutilization of our staff. We're seeing a significant burnout and turnover. It was widespread with our research administrators, which means we're having to turn over and hire new employees on a system that is immature, that is still trying to find its footing in the stabilization phase, and not a lot of experts to train them up on it. Staff engagement was limited. We had resources available, but getting those resources and connecting them to the ground level proved difficult. There was perceptions of data integrity, pre-system implementation and post-system implementation. Some numbers changed depending on how you looked at it. That wasn't the number I saw before. Why is that? It's because the data isn't right. Well, actually it is. Maybe it's because we were measuring it wrong. And on the previous system, we were on project-based accounting. And on the new system, we were on cost-based accounting. So the numbers were the same. They were just manifesting in different ways because of the nature of the accounting principles that were underlying the system. We had to get reporting right. Sponsoring agencies require regular and stringent reporting requirements. We had large process portfolios and a wide variance of practices. And ultimately, we had low process visibility. So there were a lot of things that had to be observed, that had to be recognized, and it starts with getting that process visibility so that we can start to fix these other problems. So the infrastructure that was going to help smooth over this stabilization, and ultimately, once stabilization occurred, lean principles could be put into place to start moving towards the optimization phase. And the infrastructure had a service and support team where they were answering calls, they were answering emails to help guide our fund managers and our research administrators through the difficult processes that they were now encountering. We had escalations and remediations for mission critical processes that were broken or examples of award function that didn't quite fit within the standard functionality of Oracle. We also had communities of practice where fund managers and research administrators could try to work together to uncover and share best practices. And we also had governance groups that formalized those best practices, as well as the training for the service and support teams. So while we have this incredible infrastructure that worked hard to make the stabilization as palatable as possible, and I don't want to discount the challenges that were faced there, but we simply couldn't have gotten to where we were in the amount of time we had without this infrastructure. But the limitations going into the optimization phase were process improvement focus, where we had no obvious ownership for process enhancements. And what I mean by that is ultimately moving from a homegrown system where we had programmers and a dedicated IT team that could make the enhancements we needed. We had to identify exactly what the enhancements were that we needed, and we needed to work with our cloud-based vendors to make those enhancements for us. And then we run into the difficulties of configuration versus customization. If Oracle was to change a process for us, how would that impact some of the other customers that they had? So there was a limitation of scope for ultimately what we could do. But even before that, we had issues of problem definition and refinement. And the first question I asked when we were brought in to resolve these problems was we were asked to fix a specific process and then move on to other ones. So there was sort of this charter laid out by the governance groups over what needed to be fixed. What were the most challenging processes? And the first started with a process called cost transfer. And the question I asked was, how do we know it's a problem? Well, we hear that. Okay, well, that can be influenced by squeaky wheels. That can be influenced by just number of people that are experiencing this process. And it doesn't necessarily give us what we need in terms of observable impact and how it's impacting our processes and our reporting. But the second question was, how big of a problem is it? And ultimately, we don't have that answer because we don't have that process visibility. Everything is in cycle time, and we don't see what is happening in the Gemba at the ground level. Ultimately, if we don't have that baseline data, how do we know that any changes we make are actually successful? So measurement phase requirements. What we see here over on the right-hand side is a graphic that shows the complexity and permutations of processes and the limited visibility that we have to it with traditional process observation methods. We can validate or invalidate the qualitative data. We need to be able to do that. And also, too, I want to make clear that the lean paradigm, if condensed into DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, the bulk of this conversation today is going to fall in measure and analyze with a little bit in control. We had to be able to prioritize effort. If we can understand at the ground level what is happening with these processes and we can accurately baseline them, we can prioritize for maximum impact so that as we relieve the pressure valve of difficult processes, it creates that capacity for other process improvement endeavors. So we have to be able to accurately prioritize it. We have to baseline on an enterprise scale, and that's where that graphic most resembles the issue. We have hundreds of research administrators across 3 different vice chancellor areas: Scripps Institute of Oceanography, Health Sciences, campus. We need representative cohorts and data. So we just don't need our best users and to understand their process and get data from them. We need a conglomerate of users that are mature, immature in their knowledge of the system, that have been here a long time, that have been here a short time, that work with our biggest portfolios of work, that work within our smallest research portfolios of work. Oh, and we have to be quick about it. All right, we can't live this way any longer, and we need lean experts to come in here and help us understand the problem as quickly as possible. So using traditional observation methods, we knew that wasn't possible. So I started investigating other possibilities. And what you'll often find when you're looking and doing research on this is there's 2 different possibilities to try to scale our baseline data measurements. There's what's called process mining, and there's what's called process discovery. I'll start with process mining. The way the process mining works is sophisticated software that is integrated at the task and execution level of a system, consumes event logs. So you feed the event logs into this system, and it creates a process map that helps us understand throughput yield, how often it's kicked back, how many times the process deviates from the process and maybe skips certain steps. We can start to identify a little bit of these different paths through the process itself and understand how long it takes when it goes through these certain paths. We can visualize it, we can understand the variance scenarios, and it shows what has transpired digitally. But again, this falls into that limitation I spoke to earlier, that we are looking at timestamps, and what we're having difficulty in process mining is being able to understand what is happening when a research administrator's fingers are on the keyboard or when their eyes are on a screen reading an award or an accounting of their project. Where this is ideal is for single system processes, and you can find success there. Some of the common vendors that I looked into, and there were more than this, but with Celonis, ProM, which is a free open source software. So that's something that anybody here could download and try to dabble with, assuming they have access to event logs for a system. And there's also Power Automate. There's also process discovery. And this will get you a little bit deeper into understanding that touch time that I was talking about. And this is what we really needed to get to. This has a user point of view. Rather than consuming event logs, it uses virtual agents to record keystrokes, to get image grabs. And this allows us to see where our users toggling in and out of certain systems. And it helps spread across multiple systems. So while process mining had a limitation of being single system focused, discovery allows you the opportunity to see across multiple systems and see it intimately at the end user level. Now, Cryon, which is owned by Nintex, Scan AI, those were some that we looked at. This sounds really good. Here are the cons of it, is that we needed a robust look across multiple different users. And where this becomes difficult to scale is those virtual agents are quite costly. To create a bot, I was getting figures of about $10,000 per bot. And to do that, to get a representative sample for 400 RAs across 3 VCs, several dozens of departments and dozens of divisions and hundreds of departments, this wasn't exactly a scalable solution, while it did sound nice. So this was sort of a summary of the pros and cons of traditional observations, process mining, and AI. How I took this was trying to understand what are the pros of each one, and can we create a new solution that will help us to scale, but also get that AI level look at the processes itself. The solution that was ultimately devised was utilizing a program called Scribe. You can find that at scribehow.com. And what I wanted to do was take this product, which would collect screen grabs. Now, it wouldn't analyze them, but it would capture them for us to review on the back end. And this is where the scalability of it came from. We conducted a week-long event dedicated to baseline capture. We rented an entire room with a dozen workstations where the Scribe solution was installed on them. And what we asked our fund managers and research administrators was, come do the work that you're doing on a regular basis and just do it here. There's nothing that has to change other than you saying start recording, and then when you're finished, to say stop recording. And an automated screen capture software will capture that along the way. It captures observer time, so that each time that they move between one sequence of a process to the next, that time is captured, and it allows us to analyze on the back end. That part is not automated. That takes a little bit of rolling up your sleeves. However, it was scalable enough for a single person to do it. Also, by having everybody in the room, while we were interested in the quantitative data that we were collecting from the software, we were also interested in the qualitative discussion, where I could walk up, not with a stopwatch, but ask them, what are the barriers that you're seeing in this process? Tell me a little bit about the primary cause that you see that is causing the inefficiency, and let's ask why several times together. We're going to put it on this board here. And when another user comes in, we have this captured to validate with them to see if they have a different understanding of what the primary and root causes are. And this, together with the quantitative data, really creates a brief on-ramp to true analysis that we can ultimately convert into successful countermeasures. This synthesis of data was being captured as close to real time as possible. Again, this was something that had to be done by myself in the background as these process captures were coming in. This is some screen grabs of what that ultimately looks like. Over on the left-hand side, we see a screen that is capturing a process observation of a travel expense reimbursement within one of our financial information systems. In the background, that is getting recorded. And when it's complete, in the middle graphic that you see there, it creates a process history, and it shows us how many steps it takes. It shows us how long it took to do it. And for each step within the process, it is giving us a timestamp of the touch time, not of the cycle time. But we're now getting timestamp data of the work as it's being completed. And then over on the right-hand side, we see all of those processes together in a folder structure of a process repository that we are able to dive into and mine for process efficiency opportunities. This is ultimately what it looked like. Incentives matter. It has to be exciting. It's not enough to say, press record on the work that you're already doing. What's in it for them? These are professionals that are over capacity. They are burdened by these processes, and it's simply too much to ask for them to be involved deeply in a process improvement effort. So what's in it for them? This took place in April of 2023. It was around just after March Madness. NBA playoffs had started. For our American audiences, you'll know what that means. And we were able to generate off of this just kind of latent excitement for sports fans, and we made it into a theme that said we are looking for baseline data. So baseline to baseline, which is, if you talk about a basketball court, there are baselines on it. So, that's sort of the connection to be made. But we had King Triton, our mascot, show up and pretend to record some processes with them. We had a raffle process where each observation allowed for tickets to be drawn at the end of the day, and then at the end of the week, we offered a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt Certificate Scholarship that was worth $4,000 to a grand winner. But we also had $75 Visa gift cards, books, giveaways, and so don't underestimate the power of incentives. We got a lot of engagement as a result of that. We have 400 research administrators, almost 50 showed up to this, and we got hundreds of observations across a multitude of processes. This helped us capture a plethora of process observations that allowed us to understand the very degree of all the different processes and the portfolios these research administrators manage. I will give one tip here. If you go down this route, make sure that these processes are being captured with over here on the use a subset of action verbs. Are we creating a direct retro? Are we managing or editing a direct retro? Are we simply looking up a direct retro? Or are we submitting one? So these are different action verbs that help us to further delineate processes. And this is going to be extremely helpful on the back end. So don't forget that. You need to have a verb to start your process. And after that, it's what's ultimately happening. The direct retro process, the management or creation of a fund, or the management or the update of a balance. We were also capturing what primary system it was in, also making note that this is occurring in multiple systems. And then over on the right-hand side, we have cycle time, number of clicks, number of entries, number of keystrokes, and number of navigations through hyperlinks. And then we take this data and we're able to build a Tableau report about it. And being able to capture by VC area, so our vice chancellor area, we got to see fund manager data in the academic affairs, the CFO office, the health sciences area, and our Scripps Institute of Oceanography. So this is just one example where we mine down into this Tableau dashboard, and it helps us to prioritize and sense what the opportunities are. In this case, the transaction invoice process, what we see is maybe not an opportunity to improve the process, but an opportunity to see what it is that academic affairs has done to have a less variable population of data compared to what we see in health sciences. That mean time and those those whiskers are a lot less variable. So is this an opportunity simply for best practice sharing rather than it is for process improvement? After the event, we knew that this had to continue. So keeping in line with the theme of basketball, we called it overtime, and we created a subset of core users, sort of our SWAT team or small standing army of subject matter experts who would participate that were representative of new employees, of seasoned employees, and those who are new and comfortable with the system and those that weren't. And they were able to help us go one process at a time to get deeper data into the processes of interest that this baseline event allowed us to capture and prioritize. They were stating an interest in having a virtual format. So this was previously done in person on dedicated workstations. Is there a way for them to do this on their home station while they work from home? So this was an opportunity for us to find a way to be inclusive of work from home staff. So the maturation or the improvement of this capture itself continued to have lessons learned. And the way that we did that was we went from individual licenses to an enterprise level license. And this was quite inexpensive compared to other options that were on the table when I was first looking at mining and discovery. It's very sensible. I won't share it here, but happy to talk with it if you want to. But when we worked with the Scribe team, we got an amount that we were very happy with. And this allowed us to extend licenses remotely to anyone on their workstation. And they were able to capture as many processes as they could from home. We knew that being in person had a benefit of qualitative discussion. How are we going to recreate that in a virtual format? What we used was a hype innovation tool. We branded it as IdeaWave, but this is a crowdsourcing tool. So if you're interested in that tool specifically from Hype Innovation, there are other competitors as well that you can look at. Simply look into crowdsourcing tools. What this allows us for is an opportunity to have robust discussion to find those details about ultimately what is the root cause driving the inefficiencies that we're seeing in our quantitative data. So this program continues on today. It's exceptionally refined. We're getting the buy-in that we need, and we're making actionable decisions off of it that are improving our enhancements, that are improving our reporting, and that is also improving our sharing of best practices. So some lessons learned at this point. I said it before, incentives matter. The end user needs to lead everything. At the start of this initiative, we were asked to look into the cost transfer process. What we were interested in having was having the end user identify those processes for it with their qualitative discussion, validated by their quantitative contributions. Some opportunities for improvement. What I saw as an opportunity was, at the time I was part of an internal consulting office at UC San Diego that was implementing this. What I saw as a future state was transitioning this role over to a baseline program manager that's within the implementation team, the governance, and the system experts. This transition has already taken place. His name is Brandon Parker. I have his email at the end of this. He is actually in a meeting with someone from Health Sciences working on this exact work right now, so is unfortunately unable to join. Opportunities for improvement was to what I call creating a SEAL team of scribers in addition to the volunteer army. So there is a lot of penetration in obtaining volunteers, but when we get to a point where we need specific process data, not all volunteers engage with the specific process we may be looking for. So having a skilled set of SEAL team, what I call SEAL team members that are maybe 6 from each VC area, we can deploy them immediately to say, hey, start running these processes more and more and make sure that you're capturing those so that we can at least start to see some of the patterns while we wait for this volunteer army to find those opportunities to engage with the process and record it. Also, a cascading communication plan. I was greatly overextended as a result of being in every single community of practice meeting, user help desk meetings, standing open hours for the different, there were dozens of them, joining those and being a part of the communication about what Scribe is and how you can use it. Being able to create a communication plan that's going to help research administration directors and managers disseminate that to their teams is vital. And I still to this day don't know that we've succeeded in that, so that we're finding a lot, myself and the new program manager, extending ourselves to make sure that the communication doesn't fall stagnant. Some untapped potential. At the time I actually created this and gave this presentation last October at the Lean Higher Ed Global Conference. We've actually since tapped into this potential, and the next couple slides are going to go over that. So this is, again, going to that cost transfer process that seemed to be a thorn in everybody's side. That has continued, and project updates are that what we found is there's, to try to change that process and have the enhancements that are necessary, would require a higher level of customization and not within our scope of agreement with Oracle to perform as an enhancement. So the way that we go around that now is to find the opportunities to share these scribes and organize them in a way for our training teams to give them access to this repository of best practices so that they can at least be trained up on the best practices that exist within the framework that exists today. So while not every single process improvement endeavor will ultimately bear fruit in terms of enhancement and changes to the process, what's nice about using Scribe is that all the observations that we gathered in the measurement phase can be leveraged for the control phase, where we can create robust clearinghouses for processes where somebody who is in health sciences and new to it, they can go to that and they say, I trust Leda. I use her name because she was probably the most exceptional person I worked with when working with health sciences. I trust Leda and what she has done, how she manages her funds. I want to see her processes specifically on how she manages a cost transfer. And I can learn from that without pulling Leda away from her job to train me up. So this measurement phase capture is such a benefit later on for that control phase. Additional benefits of it is that It's easy to train and adopt. The current project manager, Brandon Parker, he does a little bit of self-deprecation where he's not a fund manager, but he sees these process captures, and because of that, he can do it. And because he sees that, he can teach it. So that means that any fund manager can see that, and any fund manager can teach it because it's so precise. There's scroll down opportunities within the scribe pages, within the scribe captures, and then there's a built-in safety net. So as I mentioned before, when the technology does not support the changes that we're requiring to fix the process once and for all, we have this plethora of captures that we can now turn to use as our training and best practice sharing opportunities. And there's also a bias towards teaching. Not everyone has time to do that, and we're overburdened. This takes some of that burden off of the leads and those who are responsible for massive awards because they're the best at it. We don't have to pull them away to teaching. This enables it for them. So now I'd like to take the time to offer the opportunity for questions and interest. Being able to, I'll close by saying, lean in its principles and having respect for the worker. If you are genuine about that, and if you are an absolute zealot for finding a way to bring respect back to the worker, you will succeed. They will engage with the project work that you have, and they will go from squeaky wheels to enablers of change. And that's ultimately what you need.
Thank you so much, Brad. I attended your presentation in October at UC San Diego, and it's exciting to see those last couple of slides where the work has continued. Thank you so much. We do have a couple questions that came in, and if others have questions, feel free to submit them. Our first question is from Jonathan. Can you expand a bit on the extent to which you were impacted by development limitations by cloud vendors? Was this more of a minor inconvenience, or did it have a more profound impact?
Shortly, profound. And I'll give a little bit of history of the Oracle transition. Tabitha and Candace's presentation earlier highlighted the need for what I would call process prehab, the idea of getting a process inventory and understanding it even before you go to the request for proposal from vendors. Do this before then. Where this helps is it allows you to improve processes before we go to vendors so that we know exactly what are the priorities that we're going to ask in those RFPs to say, what is it that you can do for us to suit our specific circumstances? The other help with that is that in cases where the process is currently limited, we have a very direct understanding of the current limitations of the current system that we're in, and we know exactly what our vendor needs to offer us. We know exactly what our design teams need to be working on prior to implementation. Why this had a profound impact is because we didn't do that. The reason for that is that we moved to Oracle at the behest of UC Office of the President. All the different University of California systems were on different financial information systems, and it made annual fiscal reporting extremely difficult at the Office of the President level. I'm not against that decision. I think there are very valid reasons for that. However, it had significant impacts on all of the universities and ours because we had to move to a system without being that had to fit a certain standard framework. And we had to fit inside that box. So the impact can't be understated. It was extremely profound. So that safety net of Scribe and having those changes and having those process captures was really important for the times that we couldn't overcome that. That said, we do have a great amount of latitude in our reporting enhancements, which is really important when working with our state sponsors. So a great deal of change as a result of what our reporting looks like, what's captured, how it's captured. We're able to make those changes, and that's been helpful. Exactly. Yeah. Not one of the great aspects of cloud computing is the lack of ability to make those enhancements. So you're certainly delegating some of the hard improvement work over to the vendor when you move to those. So keep that in mind as you go on your lean journey while investigating cloud systems.
Our next question is from Tanya. How did you control or handle interruptions? For example, if a person is working on a task and they get an instant message or a call or have to jump to a meeting, did the screenshot show you that there was an interruption in the touch time? Like maybe King Triton wanted to start a conversation with somebody since he was at the event.
Yeah, this is a great question. So generally, no. And that's because we were careful when communicating. I would pull over onto a Teams meeting, share screen, make sure that they download the system correctly, that they're getting comfortable with it. While that interface is happening with the direct fund manager, I make sure that it is well understood that don't record when you're spinning plates. Take time that we're focused on this one specific process, that we would like more capture of it, and find some isolated time on your calendar to perform that process without interruption. In the cases where that sometimes did happen, if you're a moderator or administrator of the Scribe system, you can modify documents yourself that have already been captured. So there were cases where we would see them moving over to their emails that weren't directly, or moving to their Teams messages that weren't directly improved with the process. You can delete those step by step and those specific click captures, and it will remove the process time data that's collected within it. So it'll modify the process capture itself when that does happen. But as long as you communicate up front and let them know that this is sort of individualized time specific to that capture, we really didn't run into that as an issue. Other thing, also let them know not to, if they start seeing a spinning wheel for waiting. I have a habit to do it where I'll just kind of furiously click my mouse until it shows it's capturing that. So it will impact the number of clicks that results in the data. So have them be careful about it.
But I'm not the only person who's impatient with spinning wheels. Try to move it along with some clicks. Okay, one more question from Bill. And if anyone else has questions, feel free to drop them in the question and answer section. Bill is asking, what were your metrics of success, benefit realization for university employees and process beneficiaries, and were they captured and reported in output from your system?
Yeah, so my primary concern was if we talk about the financial benefit of a process improvement, my primary concern was soft savings. So knowing that we had a frontline body of over 400 research administrators, knowing that they have, of an entire portfolio of processes that we captured in the baseline, we know that at any given time, 5%, I'm just kind of making this up right now, but 5% of their time is dealing specifically with the cost transfer process. We know that approximately 20% of the time is met with handling expense reimbursement and submission and signature. So if we can find a benefit to seeing the data improve where they're spending less process time, less touch time on that specific process, what we now know is that a research administrator that is working on an average $75,000 salary, that we're improving 10% of their portfolio of time, maybe to 5%, and there's a cost savings that we can capture there. Where that becomes important is in discussions about what's the kind of staff augmentation, and when we go to budget season, what kind of staffing are we asking for? If we can see improvements there, what we hope to see is a reduction in the need for staff to operate inherently efficient processes, and we need fewer staff, or within the staff that we already have, the ability for them to manage their processes more efficiently without additional resources. So for this specific work, that was our measure of success. There are broader measures of success for the Oracle implementation itself, but that's beyond my pay grade.
All right, I don't see any additional questions, but I want to thank Brad again for his presentation. If we could do a round of reactions to show appreciation for Brad's time and what he shared with us today. We are going to transition into an update about the Lean HE International Conference presented by Linda Spinks. Linda has worked at the University of Cambridge, where the conference is being hosted, since 2012. since 2004, both as a business analyst and more recently as process improvement lead on the Our Cambridge program. She is a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and LCS accredited trainer and has been delivering training in process improvement to staff across the collegiate university since 2017. In addition to this, she has worked with many teams to help them improve their processes. She is an active member of the Lean HE global community as a member of the North and Midlands and European steering groups and by presenting at conferences. In 2018, she contributed to a chapter to the book Global Lean for Higher Education, a themed anthology of case studies, approaches, and tools, and has more recently provided a chapter to the upcoming publication Hoshin Conry in Higher Education. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda to sell us on a trip to Cambridge in the fall.
Thank you, Carl. And thanks for inviting me, everyone. I just want to say that the sessions this evening for me, it's 8:30 p.m. Here in the UK, have been great. And I didn't attend any of them in San Diego. So it's fabulous that I've been able to catch up. Right, just bear with me while I share my screen. I'm a Teams girl mainly. So hopefully this will all go to plan. I'm just going to, first of all, play a short video.
How do we sustainably bridge the gap between tradition and innovation? Here at Cambridge, we're no strangers to tradition. From cobbled streets to historic buildings to gowns and graduation ceremonies, we've been known for academic excellence for more than 800 years. From this tradition springs innovation. The discoveries of gravity, evolution, and DNA all have their roots at the university. From stem cell research to botanical firsts, Cambridge respects the past but dares to do things differently. But in a world that is ever evolving, how do we ensure that we keep moving in a sustainable way? From profit to people to planet, we need to have a long-term sustainable vision for the future. Continuous improvement and a lean way of thinking provides us with a framework to support our traditional structures, whilst allowing future generations the space to grow and meet their needs. Implementing sustainable change isn't easy, but these challenges are the foundations upon which we build our bridges to the future.
Throughout its history, Cambridge University has maintained a position of distinction amongst global universities, not by standing still, but through a process of continuous evolution. From historical challenges to recent issues like Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic, the university has shown its ability to respond to challenges by adapting and changing. Fostering a culture of continuous improvement in our universities is essential for us to maintain our position in the world of higher education.
The University of Cambridge's mission, and indeed our passion, is to contribute to society through education, learning, and research at the highest international levels of excellence. We know many of you share this passion. We are delighted to invite you, our higher education colleagues from across the globe, to join us in Cambridge in 2024 to learn from and inspire one another.
The Lean HE Network has been encouraging us to share our stories for over 10 years. Coming together from across the world, we found motivation and inspiration in each other's stories, and we can't wait to welcome you to the University of Cambridge in 2024 to hear your stories and together discover how we can improve processes both for now and in the future.
Okay, so apologies for those that were at UC San Diego and saw that video. We're very proud of it. So we're playing it as much as we can in the run-up to our conference in October. I've just put a slide up there, and I'll just leave it up there for a minute or so with a QR code that takes you straight to our conference website. Registrations are open. We're about halfway to being sold out. The numbers are looking good. And the great news is it really is an international conference. We've sold tickets to colleagues from the US, Canada, Australia, Norway, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Ireland, and of course the UK. So we're really excited to be welcoming everybody. Just a little bit, as things are starting to come together, we thought we'd start to share some of the plans for the 3 days in October. We had some inquiries about people organising flights, so I thought it'd be worth sharing this. We're on dual site. So on the first day, we'll actually be at the Cambridge Union Society, which is around about 200 years old. It's not as old as the university itself, but it's the place where it's the debating chamber. It's where some really famous, important people have done talks and done debates. So we're really excited to be in that chamber for the sort of formal part of day one. And then we follow that with a drinks reception at the Union Society in their library. And interestingly, it's the only building that received bomb damage in the centre of Cambridge during World War II. And they've actually maintained on some of the bookshelves where the shrapnel damage has happened. So there's real historical interest there. We will be doing some informal activities in the morning of the first day. Really, ideas stolen from our trip out to San Diego. We're planning to do some walking tours. We're planning some other activities for those that don't necessarily want to go wandering around the city. On days 2 and 3, we'll be at the Hilton right in the heart of the city centre. Cambridge is very much a town and gown city. The university is woven into the fabric of the city itself. So the Hilton is ideally placed to be at the centre of everything. And for those 2 days, we'll be running both plenary and parallel sessions. Our conference dinner will be at one of the 31 Cambridge colleges, which is Fitzwilliam College. And we've got some exciting after-dinner entertainment to look forward to. In terms of the content, people have started asking questions about content, and it's one of those chicken and egg situations. We have 4 invited speakers, but other than that, the content will be, as ever, from across the community. It's exciting to see abstracts starting to come in, and we'll be sharing some of the details about those, about what those sessions are going to be like in the coming weeks. If you are thinking about submitting an abstract, there is a video on the Lean HE YouTube channel of a session that we ran in Europe at the beginning of last week. A little question and answer session for people who perhaps haven't presented before. I've shared some of the details of that session with Krista, and I believe there'll be similar discussions in the US and in Australia. But if you are thinking about submitting an abstract, our conference theme, as the video said, is about sustainability and lean, bridging innovation and tradition. We've put some sub-themes there. I'm not going to read them out. You can all read them yourselves to try and give a hint as the sort of things that we're looking at and how we can link that really hot topic of sustainability with what we do as continuous improvement professionals. Just to be aware, abstract submission closes on the 8th of July, and we will be informing the successful presenters before the end of July. And that's my presentation. I'll stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
All right, we'll give that a minute. I know Carl will be watching for any questions that might pop in. I encourage you, if you have any questions about the conference, please drop those in, or feel free to reach out to me after this presentation if you like. So again, for those that missed our very quick introduction when we started right at 1 o'clock, I'm Krista Schulte. I lead the organizational excellence team at the University of Michigan, and I also serve as the chair of Lean and Higher Ed for the Americas. My team at University of Michigan has been very privileged and pleased to be able to share this Encore event with you. I also want to thank all the work they did preparing with logistics. Thank the Shared Services Center video conferencing team for making this possible with their technology. So thank you again to all the presenters who graciously appeared and agreed to stay and share their knowledge again with this wider community. We love that. We love sharing the word about the kind of work that's going on here. So just to wrap up, we will be sending out a communication to all attendees, just sharing some information about Lean in Higher Ed, a way for you to subscribe to find out about future events that take place for the Americas, and also a way to join the LinkedIn site that is for that group, just so if you want to get more information, it's easy for you to do so. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Linda, for staying awake so late to give us the preview of the conference. It's been a great experience. Thanks for all the sharing. Again, great job, everybody. We really enjoyed listening to everything you had to share. We're finished a bit early. Here's a little bit of gift of time, and off to bed, Linda, a little bit earlier. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon and evening.